G'day there guys, insert funny hilarious introduction here that people respond to down in the comments. It's Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love today's content, be sure to chuck a like and do tell me what you think in the comments. Posted by user SnooPainting9288. Titled, Am I the a-hole for punishing my son after he said something racist? About a week ago, my 39 female family ordered Chinese food for delivery. When the delivery driver came to the door, my daughter, 16 female, was taking the cat upstairs to put in her room because he always tries to eat the food. My son, 13 male, loudly says, "Make sure to hide the cat from the Chinese guy," as I'm at the door getting the food from the Chinese delivery driver. He very obviously heard what my son said and was upset by it. I quickly apologized and took the food. I told my son that racist jokes were completely unacceptable and very wrong, and he refused to admit that he was in the wrong. So later that night, I forced my son to write a sincere apology to the delivery driver. His name was on the receipt, as well as write a one-page paper on Chinese culture and a one-page paper on why racism is perpetuated by racist jokes and stereotypes. Then the next day I took him to the restaurant and had him read his apology aloud to the delivery driver, as well as give him the papers he wrote. The driver was very appreciative of the apology and thanked me for making my son do it. He then told my son about multiple instances where he had faced racist comments and attacks from people while he was a delivery driver. That night, my husband, 43 male, and I got into an argument about me making our son do this. He told me that it was embarrassing for our son to have to do the apology and that the punishment didn't fit the crime. I told him that it was much more embarrassing for the driver to have to face that kind of racism and racist stereotypes, and that our son would get over the embarrassment. I do not condone any kind of hateful thinking in my house, and the fact that my son said that embarrassed me as well. My husband told me that it was just a joke and it wasn't that big of a deal. I feel like I might have just overreacted some, but I think it's important to help my son understand how what he said was wrong and hurtful. I'm completely in agreement with the OP here. It was disgusting what the son did, and not everyone gets punished like that, and that's a good way to stop the son from doing it again in the future. You gotta get a big old slice of humble pie, and this is a great way to do it. I don't get why the husband thought it was just a joke. That's kind of enabling racism, because it was a big deal. You don't make those jokes to people's faces. You can make those jokes to yourself all you want. You can just keep that to yourself. But you do not say that to these people. You do not. You just do not be racist to people. It is not a joke. It is a big deal. I support what OP has done, and I like that they did it. OP, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? Sounds like your husband could use the lesson too. My first thought after hearing the dad's reaction, guess why the son thinks it's okay? OP not the a-hole, dad quite possibly the a-hole. The son heard that cat comment somewhere. Could be that dad says bigoted things to their son when OP isn't around, or at minimum, doesn't counter hate speech when he hears it. Dad is definitely an ass, but by the age of 10, kids will definitely have heard that stereotype in school or on the internet. No matter how good a parent you are, a kid will hear and pick up things from outside sources. As a parent, it's your role to not shelter them and expect them to never hear such things, but to ensure that when they do, they don't adopt them, so that the kid knows what is acceptable and what isn't. Especially because you have no idea if he's saying this around other Asian kids, where there's even more damage. I remember all the racism I faced in school, that I had tiny eyes, or I ate dogs, or Chinese people were barbaric, and always drowned their girl babies. I'm a girl, and my parents didn't drown me. But it left a lasting impression, and often I wished I was white so I could be normal. But if we fight back, we're too sensitive. People would taunt me with ching chong and tell me to go back to where I came from. But if I called them white people in the context of, I'm tired of white people treating us like that, it was whoa, 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 not all white people, stop stereotyping us. even if they had just made the dog-eating joke. Anyway, not the a-hole OP, thanks for teaching your kids to do better. Not the a-hole. Your son may have been embarrassed, but he should be embarrassed for having said a racist joke. That kind of joke is meant to embarrass and humiliate the target, the delivery guy. You did right by your son by turning that around and showing him that his attitudes and jokes are the real embarrassment. Soon he will be too old to teach not to be racist. You are a great parent, and I hope your son takes this lesson to heart. Yep, the driver is the wronged party here, not the son. Like you said, he should have felt embarrassed by what he did. The dad minimizing it as just a joke is meaningless, and it's one of those things that people do to excuse stuff like that. It's not okay and good on OP. Posted by user Throwaway392071. Titled, Am I the a-hole for making fun of a white girl for being poor because she was being racist? I'm Asian, more specifically one of the only Chinese people in my grade, which has been absolutely fun these days. So the girl in question has been racially harassing me since the beginning of lockdown, when she DM'd me and said, "Did the bat taste good? Thanks a lot, you fudging freak." I reported her to my school, and they literally just dropped it because they said tensions were high, and she couldn't be blamed because her uncle had the virus. Some BS like that. Then I got repeated messages like that from fake and newly created accounts that I suspect were from her, and I just kept blocking them until I guess she gave up because I wasn't reacting. My school district has chosen to do in person. Massively dumb in my opinion, but whatever. On the literal second day of school, she walks up to me while I'm in my lunch line and says in a thick Asian accent, "Are you eating bat dumbring or dog noodle?" Other people around me fudging laughed, and I'm sure I don't have to explain this, but I felt fudging humiliated. I finally felt like I got her off my back for a little while, and she comes back as soon as school starts, and I already know my school administration isn't going to go to bat for me. I don't know a lot about this girl since obviously I try to avoid her, but I did know that she had crappy teeth, lived in a trailer, and was very poor. I'm ashamed to have stooped to this, but I just wanted to show her how I felt for once. So I said, "I'd be less concerned with what I'm eating if I were you, and more worried about your diet since you're the one who needs to figure out how to brush her teeth in a trailer with no running water. Stop trying to get sent to a hospital when you can't afford healthcare." Other students nearby me told me I went too far because it wasn't her fault she was poor. Like it was my fault I was Asian? She literally fudging cried, like I didn't cry every time she called me a fudging chink. She left me alone ever since though, which doesn't matter since I plan on transferring anyways. There's really not much I can add to this one. It's a very apparent you're not the a-hole in this situation. Sometimes it's not okay to lash out at people like that. I feel like this is a rare circumstance where, you know what, just let it out. Let those frustrations out. She's given you more than enough, room where it's justified in her response. She's disgustingly racist, and we've learnt from the last story that racism ain't cool, kids. Don't do it. So yeah, OP, not the a-hole. Backing down to bullies never works. You have to hit back or they never stop. It's sad but true. Narcissists and other entitled people only respond to extremely firm boundaries and harsh consequences if they break them. She's young, so she may actually have learnt something. Learnt this the hard way. I always thought being kind will set an example, but in this world, nope. The girl probably targeted you to make her feel less bad about her crappy life. And good job for transferring. What a crap school. Being kind does set an example in regular situations, but when you get bullied or someone is being a dick, it's better to just be a dick back and solve it that way. Worked for me. Not the a-hole, in my opinion. I was made fun of for being gay as a kid and developed a sharp tongue by way of defense. I would often get in trouble for making kids cry, even though I was defending just myself. Just be careful of how you hurt people and recognize that you have the power and yield it with responsibility. Not to be a jerk, But this is probably the case with the trailer park girl as well. She makes fun of others because she has gotten made fun of herself. Happy and secure people don't bully others. I don't care that OP did that though. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. Nah, I don't think the trailer girl is making fun of others. Her behaviors are unacceptable and racist. Making fun of others is an unacceptable thing to do, whether racist or not. Racism is just one way of making fun of others. It's not even the worst. You could make fun of someone because their sibling died, or because their parents are drug addicts. Posted by user CourageClassic6141. Titled, Am I the a-hole for making fun of a woman for being in her 40s and single? This whole saga started because my husband took my last name. A couple weeks ago, he got his workplace to change it, and his co-workers found out. About half of them think this is the funniest thing ever, and about half are deeply offended. Brenda is in the offended half, and has made that clear. He and I are in a group chat with his co-workers where we organize carpooling during this pandemic. It is very helpful to us, so we can't leave the chat. Since he changed his name, my husband and I have been dealing with a lot of dumb jokes in the chats, which we have been mostly ignoring. Yesterday, Brenda, his co-worker, and I got into a bit of a spat. I messaged the group chat asking if someone could take my husband home since I wouldn't be back from work until late and needed the car. One of his other co-workers agreed, and I thought that was that. Brenda messages the group saying, maybe if you spent less time at work and more time being a wife, your husband wouldn't come into work with dirty shirts. I took this as a bad joke initially. My husband is a rural mail carrier, so his shirts look like shirts worn by someone in 90-degree heat on dusty roads. I do wash them, but there's only so much to be done. I say, I could make cleaning those shirts my full-time job, and it wouldn't do much, lol. She says, you won't be married very long if you keep trying to be the man in the relationship. I'd be embarrassed as a wife if I did so little for my husband. And I say, well, I work more hours and pay the bills, so I think he can OxyClean his own shirts if it's so important. Maybe you should learn to take proper care of your husband, or you'll find yourself divorced. I'll let you know when I need relationship advice from someone who's 42 and single. Now, apparently Brenda is going around and saying that I mocked her for being single in her 40s. I don't care if someone is single in their 40s, but I think it's absolute bullcrap that she can call me a bad wife, but I can't point out that she has no frame of reference. Am I the a-hole, Reddit? Edit. People keep asking why I need to help arrange rides in the first place. When my husband is out on deliveries, he rarely has cell service. So if I find out late that I'm going to be home late, I need to be able to reach his co-workers directly. Multiple spouses are in the chat for the same reason. Edit 2. People are saying that I've hurt my husband's feelings by saying I pay the bills. After reading the exchange, he sent me a text saying, sometimes I forget you're a little hard tramp who takes no prisoners. I'm so proud, lol. He's fine. I asked him just now if my comment about the bills hurt him, and he said, oh yeah, it's so hard having a hot wife who makes good money. Really tough. Pray for me. I can see why some people might think that OP is an a-hole for saying that. It's not always great to take a jab at people like that, but again, it's another situation where this woman was asking for it, and you're not going to put her in her place when she's being rude to you like that? Out of nowhere? Like, what did OP do to warrant this woman's spite? I don't see it coming from any logical place. It seems that that was coming from a place of jealousy and complete self-consciousness. There is no justifying that woman's attacks. I think OP was justified to do what they did, not the a-hole, and it's good to stand up for yourself in these situations. Not the a-hole. I don't even think I need to explain why. She brought this on herself. It's like watching Wile E. Coyote trying to catch the falling anvil, only to hold up a little umbrella and a sign saying, what am I doing? Not the a-hole. What the hell, Brenda? Mind your own single business. Yeah, Brenda needs to wind her neck in. Sounds like a jealous, bitter one. Obvious not the a-hole. Brenda was the aggressor, and super condescending, and pretty sexist in my opinion, and you hit her back with a zinger. Now salty Brenda wants to play the victim. P.S. Am I the only one who thinks it's odd that you had to ask the husband's work group for a ride home for him, and him not just asking himself? And OP says, he was already out delivering when I got told I was staying late and there's not always cell service. By the way, your husband's response to pray for him made me snort laugh. Congrats on being an awesome couple. Not the a-hole at all. She came out of left field and started insulting you for no reason. On top of that, she interjected herself into your marriage. Your retort was logical. What business does she have giving people unsolicited marriage advice when she's not in a successful marriage herself? For the future, don't engage. Simply say something like, "Your remarks are inappropriate. I will not lower myself and respond to such comments. Do not speak to me unless you have something relevant to carpooling to say." And OP replies, "I did say that to her once after an unsolicited rant about men who change their last names and mannish women, but she didn't stop." Posted by user Short Substance, titled, "Am I the a-hole for cutting my kid's day out short?" I've been looking after my daughter, 13, alone for the past few months because my wife is stranded abroad and can't get back into the country due to the pandemic. It's been pretty good mostly because I've been able to work from home. Yesterday, however, I had a crucial work meeting about a major contract, so to avoid distractions, I sorted out a play date with one of my daughter's friends for the day, and I dropped her to the friend's house about an hour away. I drive over, I drop her, and drive back by about 10:30. I'm about 20 minutes into what should be a 2/3 contract negotiation when I get a text from my kid asking if we can get McDonald's on the way back. Now, that was a code message I'd said to her to say that if you're feeling uncomfortable with the situation or what's going on, call me or text me or mum that, and we'll come and get you wherever you are, and it wouldn't be obvious to anyone listening that she's trying to get away. I text her back, "All okay?" and she just texts back saying, "I'm very hungry. Please get McDonald's on the way back." At this, I'm worried, so I make excuses to my partners, who were annoyed by my dipping out, and I start to rush over there. When I get there, everything is fine. Turns out it was just a prank. She'd told her friend about the message, and they both thought how cool it would be if they made me drive back up again. I was incensed. I told her that that was the end of the playdate and how disappointed I was. I also said we were going back home that instant. I made my apologies to the friend's mum and took my kid home. My daughter complained to her mum how I cut the playdate short, and now she wasn't allowed to go out with another friend the next week. My wife spoke to me and said she agrees with me that our daughter did wrong, but said it might be easier for everyone if we let her go out next week. I said no, and that not only had she made it hard to trust her again, if she is in genuine danger, which is the worst thing, she also unknowingly lost my company 6 figures in lost business. I had to email my side of the presentation to a partner, and because it wasn't their area of expertise, they didn't impress the clients. While I know that isn't directly their fault, I still believe that actions should have consequences, and it doesn't make me particularly vindictive to see those followed through. So I guess this is the first time the daughter has had to deal with consequences like this by the sounds of it, and it was a prank, and actions have consequences, as do a lot of things. Classic case of the boy who cried wolf in this situation, and she does need to know that it's only an emergency. You can't be playing with fire with this. I can see why the mum wants to let her go hang out with friends next week, to be fair, but I don't know if the daughter would learn her lesson if you did let her go and do that. So I think the unfortunate reality here is that you do need to cancel that second meetup as well, and really drill into the daughter the reality of the situation. Like, there are places you're going to find yourself where you genuinely need to do this. And the consequence of you doing this today is you've lost my company a lot of money. I know it doesn't particularly pertain to the family dynamic, but it's still very important overall. So in conclusion, OP is not the a-hole. Classic example of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Your daughter knew that the code meant that she needed to leave right then and there, and made you drive all the way back and skip work. She deserves her punishment, and maybe even more. I'd ground my kid from several things for that. She knowingly made you think she was in a bad situation and had you drive all the way there when she knew you had important work. Don't budge on your decision. Yup, and honestly, it's a perfect consequence. She made OP leave work to come get her. Her playdate is over. Simple as that. I think a few lectures need to be added in too. Business conference for OP aside, what if something happened to OP while he was rushing to get his daughter that was crying wolf? I actually think you're being pretty lenient in her punishment, OP, not the a-hole. She's 13. Go ahead and let her know there were business consequences and what they were. Let her know that she put OP on thin ice and their job is shaky, and that if they lose their job, the results will be X, Y, and Z. She needs to know that there are real-world consequences too. She's old enough to know that she cost the company money and put Dad's job in jeopardy. Perhaps next time she wants, not needs, an expensive item, she can be reminded of this. I would love to get that for you, but you cost us that bonus, so we can't afford it. Do it only once, unless she shows no remorse. And for those who are going to say this makes it look like work and money is more important than her, he proved that she's more important when he dropped everything to go and get her. She definitely has to do some work to get his trust back. 13 is definitely old enough for that. If OP's actions are genuinely done without resentment, vindictiveness, or even undue blame, and are actually used simply as a teaching moment of actions have consequences, I think these are more than adequate measures to take. If OP outright explains that you are my number one priority, especially when you're potentially uncomfortable or in danger, I want you to trust me to come and drop everything to come and get you when you use that phrase. Or if you ever otherwise ask or need me to, but in return, I need to also be able to trust you. You damaged that trust with this prank, and I don't ever want to have to ask you if you're sure you're uncomfortable or feeling threatened. I think she will understand that these punishments aren't vindictive, but consequences for breaking your trust in her. At the very least, she will think twice before ever pulling something like this again. Posted by user ThrowRA Uruka, titled, Am I the a-hole for building a fence and blocking my neighbors from the road, forcing them to take a massive detour? So I'm the owner of a large house with a huge property surrounding it. When I bought my property 5 years ago, I basically lived at least 5 minutes away from the nearest house. However, the villages and towns have been expanding, and as a result started developing houses next to my property. I was fine with it. Nothing I could do about it to begin with, but my property is big enough not to really notice to begin with, or so I assumed. It's good to mention I basically pulled out a bunch of trees when I moved here and made a dirt road with gravel of sorts to allow me easy access to the main road nearby instead of driving all the way around to access the main road. Well, soon after people started moving into the houses, I noticed that people basically used my little road to access the main road nearby, and kids used my field to play football. I was pretty much okay with it because it wasn't bothering me or inconveniencing me. Until a few months later that was. Basically, whenever people had a party or a gathering, I noticed my road and the field which they drove over was full of cars. And a few weeks later, some people straight up started using it as a parking area. I had multiple talks with multiple people, and the results ranged from apologetic people moving their cars to aggressive people who told me to go F myself. I finally had enough and started getting cars towed, which led to people yelling at my girlfriend in particular. As such, I built a large stone fence around my entire property. Well, multiple neighbors, including the aggressive ones, were all apologetic and asked me to remove the fence, and how sorry they were for using it, as they basically had to add 15 to 20 minutes to their travel time to work without my shortcuts. I told them to go F themselves and get the F off my property, and if I saw them there again, I'd be letting my dogs loose. However, this is also impacting the nice neighbors, so I am conflicted. It really looks like one of those situations where it's all or nothing. If you start letting the nice neighbors through, eventually it might turn into one side versus the other, and humans are tribal, and we really don't want to do that because you will start so much more drama than it's worth.
Either you let everyone in or you let no one in. Seems to be the simple solution. And either choice, you're not the a-hole for doing so. It's your property, you get to do whatever you want with it. Unfortunately, these people have abused their privileges, and that's just life. Not the a-hole. Your property, your rules. Also, if you didn't do this, you could potentially have ended up giving them a right-of-way easement without realizing it, depending on your local laws. Don't budge, leave the fence. Maybe they will think in the future about asking for permission instead of forgiveness. I didn't. Right-of-way applies if they need my property to access their own. They can all leave their property as my house is next to the road, not any houses. What Starfleet was saying is that you were in danger of creating a legal right-of-way across your property by allowing your neighbors to use that as a shortcut. If you allow it for too long, not only do you lose the right to block it off, you also become liable for its maintenance and any injuries or accidents that occur due to lack of it. Glad I blocked it off then. Not the a-hole. This was the right call. Invite the nice neighbors and their kids over for a nice barbecue once it's safe to do so. You can totally find ways to be friendly without letting the crap neighbors take advantage of you or put you in a bad legal situation. Congrats on the new fence. It'll be the best neighbor you'll ever have. Invite neighbors over and apologetically say that you had to do it because insurance was getting sky high. If you want, you can talk to a tax planner and discuss their donating the corner nearest their houses to the town for a playing field. I think tax laws will allow you to write off the cost of the land that way, and the town will then have the cost of the insurance and upkeep. But make sure to write in that the gift is conditional and ownership will revert to you if they try to sell it to a developer or build on it. Posted by user Am I the A-hole Niece Lifestyle? Titled, Am I the A-hole for refusing to support my niece's lifestyle? So my sister and her husband were sent to prison at the start of this year, and sadly won't be released for a few years. That left me to look after their 15-year-old daughter Amy. I was perfectly happy to do this, but as most of their wealth was seized for being ill-gotten, it means that I've been having to take care of her out of my own pockets. Once again, this doesn't bother me, but it's meant massive life changes for the kid. Firstly, they sent her to a private school. I can't afford anywhere near those fees, so I had to transfer her to a local school. She was upset at this at first, but she quickly made friends and is excelling academically, so this isn't a huge problem. She's been off school for the last few months anyway due to the situation. A bigger problem is clothing. Like my sister, Amy loves fashion and designer stuff. She's still got a lot of stuff that her parents got her, but she's always on the lookout for new clothes. Unfortunately, I can't afford anywhere near the sort of stuff that she likes, and I also have 2 children of my own whose clothing I have to pay for. I've told my sister this, but she insists that I should make allowances, because her daughter is going through a tough time. Amy also really doesn't get along with my daughter Hannah, who is 11. She bullies her, calls her stupid and ugly, tells her none of her friends really like her, etc. She's made her cry on many occasions, and often continues to taunt Hannah while she cries. Yesterday, I caught Amy trying to buy a dress costing over $1,000 with my card. I was fuming and had a long conversation with her. She cried and sobbed that she just wanted one nice thing. My sister called from the prison, and Amy cried over the phone that she hates it here, and I treat her unfairly. I spoke to my sister afterwards, and she begged me to go easy on her daughter because she's still adjusting. I put food on this kid's plate. I buy her whatever clothes I can afford, even if they aren't to her taste. I take her to visit her parents as much as possible. They are held in different facilities, and I do all of that on top of working and looking after my own children. I told my sister that I was willing to look after her daughter for as long as she needs, but if anything like the card incident happens again, or if she continues to pick on my daughter, there will be serious consequences for her. My sister wanted to argue, but they get limited time on the prison phone. I think what I'm doing is right. I get that the kid is going through a tough time, and I'm doing everything I can to be there for her. but I just can't tolerate bad behavior or bullying. And I can't afford to pay for her expensive clothing. The fact that she's struggling to deal with what happened to her parents doesn't change that. And I'm on OP's side for this one as well. It's not OP's fault that this girl is having such dramatic changes in her lifestyle, and if you can't support it, you shouldn't be expected to support it. She's got 2 parents in prison, for God's sake. Can she not adjust? It is possible for people to adjust in this life. And as much as that would suck for you from going from a rich lifestyle to one where you're not rich anymore, you have to adjust. And the parents, it seems, are coddling this child and putting undue expectations on OP. That's not fair to OP in this situation. Do they want the kid to go into foster care? Because they're going to be even worse off in that situation. There's no winning if you continue to coddle this child. OP, not the a-hole, please help bring her back down to reality. Not the a-hole. Your sister is at a whole new level of entitlement here. Her own choices have placed Amy in this situation, and it's fallen on you to care for her. You have stepped up, and it sounds like you're doing a bang-up job. Your responsibilities are to ensure her that Amy is fed, clothed, housed, educated, and loved and supported. You're doing all those things. Your responsibilities do not extend to buying Amy designer clothing, much less a dress that costs $1,000 if you are on a budget. Amy is indeed going through a tough time, but she needs to learn a couple of tough lessons. Namely, your income can't cover the same lifestyle that her mother's ill-gotten funds did. She is not owed designer clothes, using your credit card without your permission is absolutely stealing, and is not justified by just wanting one nice thing. Good for you for role modeling some sane and reasonable values for this poor girl before she grows up to repeat all of her mother's mistakes. Okay, and I think that's where we're going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it, and maybe even learned something from these stories. Just want to say a quick shout out to my Patreon subscribers and my channel members. You guys should be on the screen right now. If you do see yourself, I want you to give yourself a little pat on the back for being amazing and supporting me on this channel, this little journey we're going on the YouTubes. I really appreciate it, and you guys enable me to do all this amazing work. So if you do see yourself, I love your face and I'm happy to see you. Also guys, if you want to pitch in your own support, you don't have to, but channel links are down in the description below to support the Patreon, the channel membership, whatever you want to do. It's kind of like tipping me if you feel like I'm doing a good job on this channel. I will be opening up avenues for content on those in the future. Just right now I'm kind of bogged down and stuck in Ireland, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, with that said, I do hope you have a wonderful day today. Whatever you're up to, I'd love to know down in the comments below. I do hope you have a good day, night, sleep. Whatever you're up to today, tell me, and I'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.